When people talk about the wildest handmade cars ever built in America, one machine always finds its way into the conversation: the stunning Norman Timbs Special. At first glance, it doesn't even look like a normal automobile. It's long, impossibly smooth, extremely low, and shaped like something that escaped from a wind tunnel rather than a garage. Some people jokingly say that if you parked it next to a spaceship prop from a 1950s science fiction movie, nobody would question it. But what makes this car truly fascinating isn't just its appearance, it's the story behind it. Because this futuristic Streamliner wasn't created by a giant automaker with a massive budget. It was designed and built by one very talented engineer, Norman E. Timbs, who simply wanted to prove what was possible when creativity meets engineering skill. Norman Timbs was not just a car enthusiast tinkering in a garage. He was a professional engineer who had worked in the racing world and was deeply familiar with advanced chassis construction and aerodynamics. In the 1930s and 1940s, engineers across many industries were fascinated by streamlining. Airplanes, locomotives, and even household appliances began adopting smooth, aerodynamic shapes. In the automotive world, this movement became known as the Streamliner era, cars designed to look fast, modern, and aerodynamic. Timbs embraced that philosophy completely, but instead of making small styling changes like most manufacturers, he decided to build a car that would push the idea to its absolute limit. The project began in the mid-1940s. Rather than starting with a conventional production chassis, Timbs designed a lightweight tubular frame similar to those used in race cars of the era. This allowed the car to sit extremely low while maintaining structural rigidity. The frame supported a completely hand-built aluminum body. Every panel was shaped manually, carefully formed and smoothed until the entire surface flowed seamlessly from the front of the car to the rear. There were no unnecessary trim pieces, no decorative chrome distractions, just pure sculpted metal. The proportions of the car are what make it instantly recognizable. The nose stretches forward in a long, smooth curve, while the cockpit sits relatively far toward the front. Behind it, the body tapers into a massive, streamlined tail section that seems to go on forever. The whole silhouette resembles a teardrop lying flat on the ground, which is actually one of the most aerodynamically efficient shapes known in vehicle design. In fact, when people see the car for the first time, the most common reaction is something along the lines of, "Wait, that thing actually drives?" Another unusual feature is the lack of traditional doors. Instead, the entire rear section of the body lifts upward to reveal the engine compartment. When opened, the car almost looks like it's unfolding itself, exposing the mechanical components underneath. It's both practical and dramatic, a bit like opening the lid on an incredibly expensive mechanical jewelry box. And inside that enormous rear body section sits the heart of the machine, a powerful Buick Straight Eight engine sourced from Buick. This particular engine displaced 319.2 cubic inches and produced approximately 180 horsepower at 4,000 revolutions per minute. For the late 1940s, that was a very respectable amount of power. The long inline 8 configuration was known for its smooth operation and strong torque delivery, which made it ideal for a grand touring-style car like the Timbs Special. The engine was mounted in the rear of the chassis, a configuration that was extremely unusual in American car design at the time. Most American vehicles placed the engine in the front, but by moving it to the rear, Timbs was able to dramatically lower the front profile of the car and improve weight distribution. Power from the Straight Eight was sent to the rear wheels through a manual transmission, creating a surprisingly capable drivetrain for a custom vehicle. Because of its streamlined body and relatively powerful engine, the Timbs Special was capable of reaching a top speed of around 120 miles per hour, an impressive figure for a custom-built car in the late 1940s. To put that into perspective, many standard production sedans of the era struggled to exceed 90 miles per hour. In other words, the Timbs Special didn't just look fast, it actually was fast. The car's dimensions also contributed to its unique appearance. The overall length measured roughly 17 feet 9 inches, while the width was around 6 feet and the height was just about 4 feet. That extremely low profile gave the car a dramatic stance on the road. From some angles, it almost appears as if the body is melting into the pavement. If you parked it next to a typical American sedan from the same era, the difference would be striking. The Timbs Special would look less like a car and more like some futuristic land-speed machine that accidentally wandered into the wrong decade. Suspension design was another area where Timbs applied advanced thinking. The car used independent front suspension, allowing each front wheel to react to road conditions independently. This improved handling and ride comfort compared to traditional solid axle designs. At the rear, the suspension was carefully integrated with the tubular chassis and rear engine layout to maintain stability at higher speeds. The combination of the lightweight frame, aerodynamic body, and well-designed suspension gave the car surprisingly balanced handling characteristics. The wheels themselves were partially covered by the bodywork, another classic Streamliner technique. By enclosing portions of the wheels, airflow turbulence around the tires could be reduced, improving aerodynamic efficiency. But of course, it also made the car look incredibly sleek. Even when standing still, the Timbs Special appears as though it's slicing through the air. When the car was first revealed, it immediately attracted enormous attention. Magazines featured it prominently, and enthusiasts were fascinated by the idea that such a futuristic vehicle had been built outside of a major manufacturer. It quickly became one of the most celebrated custom cars of its time. Unfortunately, like many one-of-a-kind machines, the original Timbs Special did not survive the decades intact. After passing through several owners, the car was eventually destroyed in a fire in the late 1960s. For many years, it existed only in old photographs and magazine articles, almost like an automotive legend that people talked about but rarely saw. Fortunately, the story didn't end there. Decades later, a group of dedicated craftsmen and automotive historians decided to recreate the car. Using archival photographs, historical documentation, and painstaking craftsmanship, they rebuilt the Timbs Special as accurately as possible. The process required forming the aluminum body panels by hand once again, just as Norman Timbs had done in 1948. When the recreated car finally appeared at classic car shows, it stunned audiences all over again. People were amazed that a design created more than 70 years ago could still look so modern. In fact, if someone rolled it onto the floor of a modern concept car exhibition, many visitors would probably assume it was a brand new design inspired by retro styling. And maybe that's the greatest testament to Norman Timbs' vision. He didn't just build a car for his own time, he built something that looked decades ahead of it. The Norman Timbs Special remains one of the most iconic custom automobiles ever created. It represents the perfect combination of engineering talent, artistic vision, and pure passion for automobiles. It proves that sometimes the most extraordinary vehicles aren't the ones built by massive corporations with enormous budgets. Sometimes they come from a single engineer with a dream, a workshop, and the determination to build something the world has never seen before. And honestly, if you ever see this car in person, don't be surprised if you find yourself staring at it for a long time. It has that effect on people. After all, cars this beautiful don't come along very often. And if you enjoy discovering rare and unusual vehicles like this one, machines with incredible stories and fascinating engineering, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are many more automotive legends ahead, and some of them are even stranger than this one.